The LA Clippers have made it 3 wins in a row, and this one was a fun one. A little student versus teacher battle ended up happening in Charlotte. Brandon Miller against his favorite player, Paul George, and how about PG having a season high in points in this one? Why was it a little bit more difficult than expected? But how did the Clippers get the win? And do we have any concerns going into the next game? Going to be talking about it all on today's Locked On 3 in a Row Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, born and raised in LA, and in my 19th season, the final stretch of my 19th regular season as a Clipper fan. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Dime Dropper Pod, and subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, where I went live to talk about the weekend in LA games. And Locked On Clippers is free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, where I want you to let me know what you thought of the game. Were you disappointed with the performance? Were you happy with it? Paul George did get a season high. We're starting to see more patterns in terms of the lineups that we're using to close games. And then I'm going to be talking about any potential concerns towards the end. But let's get right into it. Clippers looking for their third straight win. This game coming against the Charlotte Hornets, who have been banged up by injury all season long. They're basically tanking now. Brandon Miller has had a very solid rookie season. Definitely been one of the best rookies in the league alongside Wemby, Chet Holmgren, Derek Lively. And I don't know if I'm forgetting any others, but he has been absolutely impressive. Now, no LaMelo Ball, no Mark Williams. They obviously traded Terry Rozier to Miami midway through the season. They didn't have Cody Martin. So they were just basically starting Miles Bridges and Brandon Miller as like their only starting players, and then the rest were backups. So it was expected that the Clippers would win this game. We won it by a score of 130 to 118. But believe it or not, we didn't actually have a 20-point lead at any point of the game. The largest lead we had was 19, and the Hornets were up by as many as 3. And I thought it was very interesting that in the beginning of the game, Paul George started out looking like it was going to be another one of those games where he's not at his best. He started off by pump faking unnecessarily on what would have been a catch and shoot 3, and ends up getting blocked by Brandon Miller. Then, I don't remember if this was before or after, but this was all in the first quarter. He had the ball in the corner, dribbled off his own foot, was double teamed, and threw it to Terrence Mann with the shot clock winding down for a grenade. And then he also missed a shot. He was 0 for 3 to start the game. And then he proceeded to hit his next 8 shots, starting with 2 at the end of the first quarter before he came out of the game. And then in the second quarter, he just went haywire. 17 points in the quarter, 22 at halftime. And here's the thing about Paul George. It wasn't like he was being super aggressive going to the rim, or it was a bunch of mid-post P. It was very similar again to that game against Chicago where he just had it going on with the jumper. And with Paul George has it going on with the jumper from long range, from mid-range, there is nothing you can do. He's in his bag. He's shooting right over the top of you, and you just got to hope he misses. Kind of like Kevin Durant. And it was really cool to see Brandon Miller, who, if you followed Brandon Miller's journey since he's been drafted, he's mentioned how much he loves Paul George, and that's his favorite player. And, you know, they had that jersey exchange after the game. They were going at it, and you got to see how good Brandon Miller is. His length, his athleticism and size, very reminiscent of Paul George, shifty as well, high release point, can score from all 3 levels. But the one thing about Brandon Miller in this game is he showed a little bit of the negative in Paul George, and that is getting a little 3 happy. In this game, Brandon Miller was 8 for 19, but 5 for 13 from 3. Just 3 for 6 from 2. Had 22 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists. But he was definitely someone to watch. And as far as matchups in this game, Trey Mann guarded James Harden. Remember Trey Mann, formerly of the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think that was in the Gordon Hayward trade. The Thunder got Gordon Hayward, gave him Trey Mann. Brandon Miller was guarding Paul George, and as I said, it was really cool to see them matched up against each other. Miles Bridges was on Kawhi. They had this guy, Micic. I'd never heard of him, guarding Terrence Mann. Let's see. He is a rookie who was the second pick in the 2014 draft to the Philadelphia 76ers. So this is his first season in the NBA, and he actually came over in the Hayward trade. He was on the Thunder apparently for the first 30 games of the season. I have never seen him play. This was the first time I had seen him. And he actually had a double-double, 10 points, 13 assists. I did not notice that, and I bet you didn't either. If you hadn't checked out the box score yet, did you think that guy had a double-double? He was 4 for 14 from the field, 2 for 7 from 3. The funny part is, and I think this is part of the reason why the game was closer than expected, yes, the Clippers' defense was not good enough, and I'll get into a little bit more depth about that, but the Hornets just shot really well. 50% from the field in the game, 44% from 3, 23 out of 52. They went off from 3, but they weren't great from the foul line, and they didn't get there that much. Just 7 free throw attempts, and they made 64% of them, which was 7. Clippers also shot really well, and we actually shot better than the Hornets in every category. 57% from the field, 48% from 3, albeit on 23 less three-point attempts. So we actually made 9 less threes. They shot 13 more shots, but get this, and you'll never hear this, so enjoy it. Clippers shot 23 more free throws than the Hornets. And mind you, it still felt as though Russell Westbrook should have had 2 more. Kawhi Leonard should have had at least 2 more. But it's great to see, and a lot of that was Ivica Zubac, who had 10 free throws on his own, and get this, made them all. Ivica Zubac, 10 out of 10 from the foul line. I'll talk about how great Ivica Zubac played in a second. But Paul George was fully in his bag in that second quarter. As far as defensive coverages, you had Nick Richards in drop coverage. Of course, Ivica Zubac is in drop coverage. We had Kawhi Leonard on Miles Bridges. Paul George against Brandon Miller, as I said. Terrence Mann was guarding Micic. Harden was guarding Trey Mann, and Zoo was guarding Richards. Of course, we're going to switch 1 through 4 as you'd expect. There was nobody that was giving us too many problems, although when Miles Bridges was being guarded by Norman Powell and James Harden, he did make it a point to go to the rim, and at times James Harden was sagging off, and he shot a 3 with no contest. And Miles Bridges, as much as I don't really have anything good to say about him, he had a good game. 33 points, 7 rebounds on 11 for 20 shooting, and 7 for 14 from 3, which is pretty insane. I mean, he had a really good game shooting from 3, but I also think there was a sense of, we know this team isn't very good. We know we can turn it on whenever we want, and just kind of going through the motions. There was no point where the Clippers tried to stomp their foot on the gas pedal and just run them out of the gym. You know, in the beginning of the fourth quarter, I was hoping that we could do well enough where Kawhi didn't have to come back in the game, and I was wrong. He did have to come back in the game. So that wasn't, that didn't make me feel very comfortable. We led by as many as 19, and we were actually up by, I don't remember if it was in the fourth quarter we were up by 19, but we were up by 17 after PG had a layup. Norman Powell had an and one. I thought we had the game in the bag, but then the Hornets made their little push, starting with Davis Bertans coming off of screens, off of dribble handoffs for threes, and at times we weren't connected to him, and we weren't talking on pick and roll situations. And when you have Davis Bertans coming off those dribble handoffs, whoever's guarding the screener who's handing the ball off needs to step up and take that 3 away, because of course the guy that's chasing him is getting hit with the screen, and you can't just have him walk into open threes. He had 9 3-point attempts in this game, and he made 5 of them for 15 points off the bench. And in addition to that, Grant Williams had a really good game and was doing some things that I had never really seen him do in Dallas or Boston. He was getting run off the 3-point line, because that's the scouting report on Grant, that he can't really put the ball on the floor. And he was actually making some plays. He actually had some runners here and there and had 5 assists to go along with his 5 rebounds and 18 points on 8 for 10 shooting and 2 for 4 from 3. But again, he's going to have the green light doing that when he's playing with a team like this. So, can he do that on a good team? That's a different story. But Kawhi Leonard checks back in the game with about 8 minutes left after they had cut it down to 10. He and Zubac. And right off of that timeout, we went to elbow P twice, and I loved it. First time he scored, second time he got fouled on a jump shot. So again, you give the ball to Paul George at the elbow area, mid-post, and he will make good things happen. Now, one thing I thought was interesting by the Hornets is that they went with Grant Williams at the 5 to try to spread the Clippers out, and we didn't match with small ball, which I liked. Even though Mason Plumlee didn't play in the second half at all, we ended the game, and we've seen this a lot the last 2 games. We're starting to lean more into that Powell Rangers lineup, as the Clippers pod guys call them. Norm, Kawhi, Harden, Paul, and Zoo to close games, because that's been the lineup with the best net rating that we've had. And coming up, I'm going to be talking about more about how they close the game. But the moral of the story, Paul George, player of the game for me, absolutely electric game. His first 40-point game of the season, 7th in a Clipper uniform in the regular season. I know it's crazy to think about that he's only had 7 40-point games as a Clipper, especially with how many guys are scoring 40-plus these days. Does that tell you that the Clippers have always had balance, or does that tell you that he hasn't scored enough? I'll let you decide in the comments, but 41 points, 7 boards, 4 assists, 1 steal, and maybe my favorite stat of all, 0 turnovers from Paul George. You got to love that. And the shooting splits, he was 5 for 5 from the line, but how about 67% from the field and from 3? 14 for 21 from the field, 8 for 12 from 3 in 40 minutes. The guy was scorching, and that's coming off a rough shooting game against Orlando, so it's great to see that. And maybe he had a little point to prove, you know? Brandon Miller looks up to him. He wants to show him, like, there's a reason you look up to me. I'm a bucket. So one thing I love is Paul George over the last 10 games or so is really starting to play better. Is starting to round into the form that we need from him going into the postseason. And in addition to that offensive stuff, I thought defensively he was very solid all game long. And that's been something that's really waned when his shot hasn't fallen throughout his time with the Clippers, but especially this season, it feels like, tailoring off on defense when he's not been great on offense. But the last couple of games, he's been really locked in on both ends, and you love to see it. But coming up, going to be talking about Ivica Zubac's closing the game, his performance, and the Powell Rangers closing 5 that we've started to see more of in the last couple of games. Going to be talking about that coming up. I got to tell you a little something about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. All you got to do is just pick more or less on 2 or more players' stats and watch the winnings roll in. March is over, but the biggest moments in college basketball tip off the month of April. Be a part of the action on Prize Picks for both men's and women's college basketball. Get in on the playoff action and win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks as you and the world's best players take the game to a new level during basketball's postseason. Playoffs begin April 20th. Play-in round is April 16th, 17th, and 19th. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with basketball, hockey, and college basketball entries today on Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. All you got to do is download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. That's downloading the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. All right, Clippers winning this one 130-118, making it 3 straight games after what was our roughest stretch of the season post new starting lineup of having Harden, Terrence, Paul, Kawhi, and Zeus start together. And one of the biggest reasons that we were sputtering was that Ivica Zubac got hurt, and even when he had come back, he hadn't looked 100%. But in these last 2 games against Philly and Charlotte, he is starting to look like pre-injury Zoo. In this game, he had one of his best games of the season. And it started right away in the first quarter, where he had 12 points and 10 points and 7 rebounds. At halftime, he had 14 points and 9 rebounds on 6 for 7 shooting. He ended the game with 24 points, 12 rebounds, and 3 blocks on 7 for 8 shooting and 10 for 10 from the line in 33 minutes. Let's talk about this performance, right? He was everywhere. And all the Zubats haters are going to say it's against the Hornets. Again, I've seen him finish like this against good teams. Zoo did a great job in the pick and roll, rolling and finishing. Started out right in the beginning with a floater from James Harden. But there were several times where the Hornets went with the late switch in the Harden-Zoo pick and roll, and we were very Zoo and Harden pick and roll heavy in that first half when Zoo was cooking, and I was totally okay with it. And I thought James did a good job of making the right reads and entry passes. And again, you're playing against a weaker defensive team. I think James Harden, as we've seen all season against those teams, he is going to get you great looks. And he didn't actually get many great looks throughout the game. Only 3 shot attempts for James. 3. So again, he's really struggling to get his shot. 4. Wow, on my live on Dime Dropper, I said that he only shot 3 times because I was only looking at his 3. Oh, no, I was right. I was looking at Terrence Mann's for a second. James Harden did only shoot 3 times. So yeah, he's struggling to get shots off. He was 1 for 3 from the field, and all those shots were threes. He had 6 points in the game, 6 rebounds, but had 10 assists to 0 turnovers, which I will take. That, to me, with the win, solidifies that he played a solid game because he had those 10 assists in 36 minutes. Defensively, I thought he was pretty pedestrian. Nothing bad to report, nothing very good to report. But I will say this. I thought he did a good job finding Zoo on those late switches, and Zoo did a great job of just going right up over the top of those weaker matchups. And one of the things that Zoo's gotten a lot better about is keeping the ball up high. Every single big, if you have a good coach, is going to tell you, don't bring the ball down low where the smaller guys can come steal the ball and reach in. You want to keep the ball up high and go up strong. Don't bring it down low as a big. One of the best players in NBA history at that, Kevin McHale. When you watch what he did, it's amazing how fundamental he makes it look. And he doesn't even, I would say he makes it look easy, but sometimes when I watch bigs today and I go back and watch McHale, it doesn't look easy at all. Jokic, also phenomenal at this. But the fact that Zubats, he used to always bring the ball down low and get stripped. Dwight Howard used to be the worst with this. That's one of the reasons I didn't like his game. But Zoo used to do it too, and he would always get stripped, always get blocked, keeping the ball up high, going up strong. And what I really liked was when we saw that Zoo was guarded by a Brandon Miller or a smaller guy, we'd actually throw in the ball in this game. And what's the result? 24-12. So I saw a comment a couple episodes ago, and I haven't been checked the comments of the last couple of episodes, and that's my bad, I will. It's people talking about, what post game are you talking about with Zoo? Are you not seeing this? Have you not seen this guy for 5 years like me, 4.5 years? You haven't, probably, because you just got off the bandwagon from Kawhi or James Harden or Paul or Russ or whoever fan you are of, the stan you are. We know that Zubats can post up, and we've been asking for it for years, but because role players shouldn't post up in today's NBA, we don't give them the ball. It's crazy that a team that struggles to get shots around the basket and free throws doesn't feed a big when they can actually post up. I had to watch DeAndre Jordan be incapable of getting the ball down low for 7 years. For 7 years minimum. It was more than 7 years. I think DJ was with us for like 9 years. And now we have a big that's not as athletic, not as good of a lob threat, but can actually post up, and we don't really give him the ball. He's a better post-up center to me than a roll guy, and the stats back up that it's efficient. So I like that Ty Lue's leaned into having him close games recently. And again, if you have a team that's not super great in drop coverage, then you can play Zubats. And Zoo was just everywhere on both ends throughout the game. So many shots that he affected, shots that he blocked. As I said, 3 blocks. Rebounding. He played nearly the entire first quarter, and he was just dominant on the roll all game long. Finishing. Let's see did he have any offensive rebounds? He had 2. 24-12 though, and so efficient. The free throws thing is my favorite part of it all. 10 for 10 from the line. But yeah, in the fourth quarter he didn't get as many shot attempts, but that's partially the way we were playing. So when in the final 8 minutes of the game, we put Kawhi in with the Power Rangers lineup. And here's one thing that was very telling to me, that despite Paul George being the guy that was hot, we went to Kawhi Leonard over and over to end the game. And that is showing you that Ty Lue in the playoffs, it doesn't matter how hot Paul George is, it's going to Kawhi Leonard the last 5 minutes. And that's the way it should be. Because Paul George is always prone to that potential big turnover and bad. Kawhi's just a better player. It's just, I don't need to go much further than that. The thing is, though, I still stand by my thing about Paul George being better for the last shot. 10 seconds or less, throw it to Paul. You can guarantee that he can get the shot off, clean look. Kawhi, sometimes he doesn't create the separation in that little of time when he can't catch the ball in certain areas. So Kawhi is the closer. Paul George is the last shot guy for me. But every single time down the floor late in the game, what we did was we had Kawhi Leonard get the switch with Brandon Miller, throw Kawhi the ball on the left side of the court, mid-post. They would double one pass away. We would swing the ball, and it would find Norman Powell in that right corner. And Norm, what a solid fourth quarter he had, and he's been doing these kind of things all year long. He is just so good at working off the catch, whether it be catch and shoot or attacking closeouts. He played the entire fourth. James Harden played the entire fourth, and so did Paul George. Norm had 11 in the fourth, 3 for 5 from the field, 4 for 5 from the foul line, 1-3. Paul George was 4 for 4 in the fourth, 13 points. The dude was just stone cold. And then Kawhi Leonard with 6 of his own. Really, and I mean really good closing game yet again from Kawhi. And defensively, for whatever reason, and I think this is partially because the Charlotte Hornets are not a smart team, they're actually going at Kawhi at the point of attack. And every time teams actually try to get Kawhi involved in pick and roll action, they don't usually get a very good shot for their team because he's the best one we've got. He still shows that when he's called upon to guard on the ball, he's still great. So Kawhi, his defensive effort and intensity has been up in my opinion. Paul George the same. And we also got him closing strong for the third straight game. Again, we've had a lot of talk this season about Kawhi and closing, and the fact that he's had the legs to close these last 3 games out. I don't think he's been doing anything less throughout the game personally. I think he just seems like he's caught a second wind or just getting ready for that playoff mode. But moral of the story, Ty Lue is starting to get more comfortable with Zubac's closing games. Zubac is playing so much better the last 2-3 games and looking like his pre-injury form, and expect the Clippers to go with a lot of that Powell Rangers lineup for extended stretches now as the season closes down and we go towards the playoffs. But coming up, going to be talking about any potential concerns and anything else I did not mention from the game because there was definitely plenty more to talk about, and the rest of the guys. Going to be talking about it all coming up. I got to tell you a little something about Amazon Fire TV. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire Stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the NCAA tournament, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels lets you dive into all of the game's analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all the latest in the world of sports, March Madness, NBA, MLB, and lots more. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos as well. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. All right, Clippers winning this one 130-118. 3 straight wins after 2 consecutive losses at home. We have lost 5 straight home games, so that's something we got to fix. But 47-27, 3 straight wins with just 8 games remaining. We're 25-14 on the road with only 2 more road games, which is great. Let's say we lose both those games. We'd have a road record of 25-16, which is a very good road record. But who knows? I think we could finish with a better record than 25-16 on the road. If we win every game, we still could get the 3rd best record in Clipper history. So, we'll see how it goes. Clippers won every single quarter in this game but the third. We won the first quarter 31-25, won the second quarter 36-30, lost the third 26-27, and then a high-scoring fourth quarter, we won it 37-36. So before we get into any concerns, I want to talk about some other things. Russell Westbrook, he came into the game, had a mid-range, got an and one on a little turnaround from the post. He had a nice pass to Norman Powell for a corner three. This was all in the first half. But he also had a terrible pass to Mason Plumlee on a lob, and then he didn't get back. One of my absolute pet peeves in basketball at any level, if any of my players that I coached ever did this, they'd get subbed out so fast. If you turn the ball over, you better hustle back. Because you already turned the ball over for your team. Don't be lagging back. Even if you think you got no chance of getting to the ball, nah, man, you better look like you're trying. Because it's just a total basketball pet peeve of mine. But Kawhi Leonard, I also have to report, third blow by from the top of the key in isolation of the season. This one coming against, I forget who, he blew by and dunked it. He had a lot more pop in his step than normal. So 3 times this season, 2 games in a row now. So again, this goes back to Kawhi closing the game with some pop in his legs. He hit that contested 3 in the corner. I don't know what happened, but he's looking a little fresher as the playoffs are getting closer. Some guys that just always know how to ramp it up in the playoffs, I don't know. It's interesting with Kawhi because he's had so many injuries that he hasn't even been this healthy this late. And I think that may be what it is as well. He is this healthy. And guys, he's played 68 games out of 74. We've got 8 games left. We're actually here April 1st. And it is not April Fool's Day, ladies and gentlemen. We're this close to a healthy Kawhi in the playoffs for the first time in 3 years. Actually, no, we had him last year. But PG and Kawhi in the playoffs since Game 4 against the Jazz. And I'm still knocking. Oh, my God, guys. 2 games away from 70. I'm so happy that Kawhi passed the 65-game threshold, and so did Paul George. Now, Paul George won't win any All-NBA awards, but the fact that he's played that many games is career high as a Clipper. Same with Kawhi. So crazy. After I said, let's get rid of them both, there's no way they can stay healthier next season. They're getting older. It's insane. It's insane how some things work. But I also think, and again, I have no proof, but I also think part of it is the approach, wanting to play every game. And as Paul George said, building that callus throughout the regular season. I think they've done that. Have they looked fatigued at times throughout the season? Absolutely. We're an older team. But it's looking like 2-1-3 starting to get their win back. And at the right time, which is amazing. As far as some other guys, let's talk about it. Before we do that, actually, the Hornets wanted to say some of their defensive strategies. They were starting to hedge on James, Kawhi, and Paul after like the second quarter, making sure they didn't walk into any pull-ups. And that was part of the reason why our offense slowed down just a bit in that third quarter. When we put guys like Bertans in the pick and roll or that Micic guy, even their bigs, they were hedging and recovering. And at times we were lagging on throwing that pass over the top. So they were trying to just get us away from drop coverage, walking into jump shots. Kawhi Leonard actually didn't shoot very well in the third quarter. He was 2 for 6 in that one. He played the whole thing. But it wasn't too big of a deal. Again, the Hornets just aren't a very good team. If I had any concern, it's that I don't think our defense was very good. I think we just relied on the fact that they're not a very good team. They're going to eventually start missing, and that's kind of what happened. But they were actually hot. We allowed them to kind of stay in the game, which, it wasn't really that problematic, but it wasn't comfortable where Kawhi got to sit out the fourth quarter. So I thought our defense was just mediocre, and we saw a much better defensive effort against Philly and Orlando, and I want to continue with those habits. James Harden, he had 5 straight points before he went out for his midway through the third quarter rest. In the fourth quarter, Russell Westbrook had 2 steals early on, and I think those helped change momentum massively. One of them was in the post against Grant Williams. He poked the ball away, and the other was an interception in which he ended up finishing off from a layup from Paul George. But as I said, Bertans started to hit threes, and then once we called that timeout and we were down by 10, we took Russ out and went with the Power Rangers lineup for the rest of the game. So that's what I have to say on that. Again, as far as Russell Westbrook, he had 11 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, but he did have 3 turnovers. Although we did take better care of the ball. I had only 10 turnovers in this game, but 3 of them were from Russ. He was 4 for 6 from the field, 3 for 4 from the foul line in 20 minutes. Again, I'm very worried about being so married to Harden. He did take better care of the ball, but Russ does give us some energy. Russ was +9. None of the starters that we had were +9. The highest was Paul George with +8. Again, I do think Paul George was the player of the game and Kawhi second. Single game plus minus doesn't do anything for me. But just saying that Russ is playing well lately and James is showing some signs of, he's struggling in terms of scoring. He really is. I want to see when the last time James had a 20-plus point game was, because it feels like a long time, although it probably hasn't been that long. Oh, my God, it has. He hasn't had a 20-plus point game since we played Houston on March 6th. It's almost been a month. And he's had 2 single-digit games since then, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games below 15 points. That's a little concerning. But that's all I got. Terrence Mann also, he hasn't had a good defensive game in a long time. He was just okay in this game. He was pretty quiet. We only played him 10 minutes in the second half. In the fourth quarter, he got 1 minute and 30 seconds. He's not been getting many minutes towards the end of games recently. He had 7 points on 2 for 4 shooting and 1 for 3 from deep, 3 boards, 2 assists. And it wasn't like Amir Coffey got many minutes either. He only played 16 minutes and he had 2 points on a mid-range and was 1 for 2. Norm Powell, though, 16 points on 4 for 11 shooting, so he didn't even shoot that great. 2 for 5 from 3, though, and 6 for 7 from the line. Norm is just so consistent. It's unbelievable, and I trust him closing so much. Kawhi had 23 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists. He did turn the ball over twice, but he was 10 for 19 from the field, so uber efficient. 2 for 5 from 3, so second straight game, he's shooting well from 3. He was struggling from 3 a bit, and again, I feel like he's gotten his legs back a bit. Only 2 free throw attempts, which was BS, but a very good game from Kawhi again, shooting super efficiently, playing D, and most importantly, closing. So you get a combined 64 points from 2-on-3. That's what you love to see, because quite frankly, they're going to need to average 55-plus points in the playoffs for us to win the championship, in my opinion. And that was the case before or after trading for Harden. So that's the positive, is that 2-on-3 is starting to round into form. And by the way, for those that were saying Harden's better than Paul George, this is why I never went that way, because when Paul George is playing D, there's no defense for him when he's on. James Harden, I genuinely am concerned about him getting shots off against good defenses. But PG, when he's on his best, two-way play is like, he's a beast, and it's so many ways you can use him to score. So that's what makes him great. It's just, I feel like Harden maximizes his potential more in the regular season, and probably has throughout his career, quite frankly. And he's such a good floor raiser in the regular season. Like, when he's on it, he can create great shots every time down. But right now, he's kind of struggling with that. But he did create some really good shots in this game. So 3 wins in a row. We got Sacramento on Tuesday, and they have Malik Monk and Kevin Huerter injured, but they're battling to stay in the play-in spots in the 7-8 because they don't want to drop to 9 and 10 and then lose one game to Golden State and then your season's over. So a lot riding on it for Sacramento, probably even more than us, because it's looking like we're going to get 4. And I know everyone's asking me the question. And honestly, don't ask this question in the comments, because I know everyone's going to ask me this. And I'm going to do a whole episode on it, probably for you guys on Tuesday. Pelicans or the Mavs? I know everyone's going to be asking me who I want. The answer is neither, but we're going to evaluate our options for the Tuesday episode. Or should I wait for another episode? I want you to comment on that. Should I just preview the Kings game on Tuesday, or should we go with that, who would I rather play against, Pelicans or Mavs? Let me know in the comments. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. Subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for even more. I went live after the game. I also talked about the Laker games and the Dodgers over there. So if you're into that stuff, check it out. But make sure you subscribe to this channel. Hit the notification bell, because we are almost at playoff time, Clipper Nation. I can't believe we're almost here. My second full season as host. And oh my God, we are healthy. Knock on wood. The age-old proverb continues. 3 wins in a row, trending in the right direction. Go Clippers.